Hello everyone. In today's presentation, I'm going to talk about AppArmor and HTTPS, and I'm gonna talk about some hardening recommendations as well. First, I'm going to start with AppArmor. AppArmor is a mandatory access control system implemented upon Linux security model. It is installed and loaded by default, and it determines what permissions and files the application requires. AppArmor protects the operating system and applications from external or internal threat. It allows the system administrator to restrict the program's capability with program profiles. And security policies decide accesses. So the security policies decide what system resources each individual applications can access and with what type of privilege they can access with. The access will be denied by default if no profile states otherwise. It can be configured for any application to provide greater in-depth defense and reduce potential attacks. And it is configured through profiles to allow the access that is needed by a specific program, such as Linux capability, network access, file permissions, and so on. And also, the list of currently active profiles can be checked with the sudo /status command. Now, for hardening Linux servers, use a strong and unique password. Update software regularly, and you can enable automatic updates. You can disable booting from external devices to reduce the potential for physical attacks. Disable root login. You shouldn't log in as a root, instead as a sudo to execute root commands. That way you enhance the security without sharing root passwords with other users. Find listening ports. Configure IP tables. IP tables will allow you to configure the firewall. And last, use secure shell, because it is a secure protocol that uses encryption during the communication with the server. Now we're going to talk about HTTPS. So, Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure is the secure version of HTTP. It is the primary protocol to send data between browser and website. It is encrypted to increase security of data transfer. This is really important when prompting sensitive data in websites such as online bank or your email or websites where you're gonna buy something. You have to use or prompt your credit card. So this protects also against man-in-the-middle attacks. And this protocol uses asymmetric public key. So it uses two different keys to encrypt communication, a private key and public key. Okay, now we're gonna talk about Internet Information Services, IIS. Is a web server that runs on Windows operating system. It can be installed on Windows Server or in a Windows client machine. It is basically a graphical user interface and may be preferred over Apache when building web apps that utilize um, the Microsoft stack. It allows developers to create and share websites or applications. IIS only runs on Windows and it has a help desk to manage any issue, which is really useful and helpful. The web server accepts and responds to client computer requests, enabling web servers to share information across the network. And now a web server can deliver information to users in different forms, like static web pages, hypertext markup language, files, text documents, image files, and so on. And also IIS integrates with other Microsoft offerings like .NET and the ASPX scripting language. Now, some of the recommendations to hardening the Internet Information Services are to control IP addresses that can access the web server, make sure the operating system is updated with all the security patches, use login to see the visitors that access the web server, and disable any features of IIS that are not in use, so it will reduce potential attacks. And use firewall to ensure the server is only receiving valid packets, so that will enhance the server security. Okay, so now I'm going to compare just a little bit IIS versus Apache. So Apache is free and open source, while IIS is packaged with Windows. IIS only runs on Windows. Apache can run almost on any operating system, including Mac OS, Linux, and Unix. The security features of IIS makes it safer option than Apache. And as I said before, IIS has a help desk to manage issues, which is very useful. Sorry, so as I said, IIS has a help desk to manage issues, which is very useful, and because Apache comes from the user community. Now let's talk about Apache Tomcat. It is an open source, as I said. It's an open source Java servlet and Java server page container that allows the developers to implement Java applications. Tomcat is an HTTP web server that runs Java code, and Tomcat is able to receive a request from a client, manage the request in application, and return the result to the client. And lastly, I will talk about hardening Apache Tomcat. So some of the recommendations are to not run Tomcat as the root user because web-related services should not be run by user accounts with a high level of administrative access. Removing the server banner will reduce the risk of information leakage. Run Tomcat with the security manager. Enable network traffic, which is useful for breach assessment and forensics. Remove defaults. So by removing default, you remove default applications to avoid any security risk. Shut down port. Tomcat server by default listens to on localhost to port 8005 for shutdown commands. And the references.